Coffee Buddy. So today we're going to begin coding the content of our web page. So I'm looking at the design document that we saw earlier in the series, and I mentioned that when we approach this, we need to think about the structure of the content. So we talked about a little bit about the structure of like the groupings of things, but in addition, we want to create an outline of this content. So one thing that I find helpful is to try to imagine what this page would look like if everything failed, if none of the images loaded, if the CSS did not load, and we just had a plain generic HTML file. What would that look like? I think what we'd want to see is Coffee Buddy as the primary heading for the document. That's uh, the brand, but since this is simply like a one-page document, that's also it's also the landing page or the home page for the site. So that brand is really the primary heading for the page. So it would be an H1. Below that, we have coffee is great, and that seems to be a heading because it defines this little section here. We like coffee, you like coffee, give us your money. Below that, there's another section. We love to drink and sell coffee. And that's much smaller, but clearly that defines another section of content. We have a paragraph after that. In our cards, we have a heading and a paragraph, a heading and a paragraph, and then coffee is our job as a heading. So we're going to start off with our headings, the structure of our headings, and our paragraphs. Let's jump over to VS Code. So yesterday we defined our head and then we created just the basic skeleton of our site where we have our main, and within that we have our header, our article, and our footer. And there's lots of different ways we can structure this. We could actually just have article, and that article can have a header, other sections, and a footer. But I'm just going to stick with the structure for now, and maybe we'll change it later on, but I think this is okay. So in our header, I'm going to include the H1, and we'll write our company name, Coffee Buddy. And now our primary navigation, we're going to use the nav tag, and we're going to put our menu. So our menu contains home, story, menu, which is kind of funny. That's the menu for the coffee shop, and then contact. That's pretty standard. So if I just write home, story, which is like an about page, menu, oops, and contact. Now each of these items is going to be a hyperlink, so we will give it an A tag, href equals, and I'm going to do #0 for now. This will allow it to behave like a link, like a true link that would go to another web page, another document, but it won't actually take us anywhere. Href equals, and 4 more, and 2 more. And finally, okay. Now these items are a list of links. So it's in a nav tag, but each item is a list item. And we would call this an unordered list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out my list items first. So that's an li tag. And this is as simple as this. What I'm using here is a plugin for VS Code that lets me wrap tags or wrap content and another tag. I'm just using a keystroke to do that because it saves me a little bit of time. But I have the hyperlink inside the list item, and then my entire list is right here. I'm going to nest that inside a UL. This is a pretty standard structure that you'll see for menus. Okay, so this is a pretty standard structure for a navigation menu. It's a list of links. So we have an unordered list, and each list item has an A tag, and then some text content. So here is our navigation structure. Let's go down to the article, and we will code our hero image. So the hero image, it says, coffee is great. We all like coffee. You like coffee, give us your money. I'm just going to copy and paste this. There we go. So coffee is great is my H2 because Coffee Buddy is the primary heading for the page, and then this is a subsection. These would technically be a paragraph, so that's how I'm going to structure it. And I'm actually just going to use breaks. This is a manual line break. If I don't include this, this will all appear on one line in my file. So treating it like, I don't know, I guess a little poem or a haiku or something. Okay. Below that, we have another subsection which says, we love to drink and sell coffee. Let me copy this as well. Okay, so we love to drink coffee is our next heading. So we'll call this an H2 as well. And then here's our paragraph text. Okay, let's go back to our cards. So dinner and coffee, followed by a paragraph text. It's an H2. And then we have paragraph tag. Okay. We have one more card. It's a French cuisine card. All of this text was written by AI, actually. So I didn't write any of this myself. I just let an app write placeholder text for me. So it's just pure nonsense, if you're wondering. And then the final one, coffee is our job. So let's copy this. And I'm going to paste that. There's an H2. So this is a little weird. Let me just take a look at the design document again. We have some line breaks here. So let's code it that way. Oh, let's code it as a single paragraph and see what happens. This will probably change later on when we get into it. Okay, now this apply for a job is a call to action. So I'm actually going to move that down, and I'm going to wrap that in an A tag. Even though it looks like a button, it is a link. And so we're going to code it with an A tag, and then we're going to change the way that it looks later on. When I look at these components, this is clearly its own section. Coffee is our job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that whole section and I'm going to wrap that in a section tag. And that section will separate coffee is our job from the other parts of the article. So French cuisine was a card, so I'm actually going to wrap that in a section. Dinner and coffee, there's a section. There's other tags we could use, like the aside tag, but I'm just going to keep these all as sections for now. Whoops. Okay, we get some typos here. Now this is the coding tutorial. Okay, and then here's our hero. Coffee is great. Okay. If I didn't want the semantic tag, I could just use a div, and that might actually be more appropriate for some of this. But just for the sake of this video, this is what I'm sticking with right now. If it was a real site, I'd probably do a little bit of research, just double check my choices and make sure that this makes sense. I'd see what other people are doing. I'd look at the documentation for these tags, and just to make sure that I'm going to be in compliance with the usage. So the last section is the footer. So let's just code the footer, and then we'll wrap this video up. So I have my copyright info right here. It's pretty standard. Let me show you how you do that. So I can paste that here, and it does paste a little copyright symbol, but it's better practice to use, it's called a character entity. The character entity is a symbol, or it's an encoding that lets you display a symbol. So the way we do this, if you know the code, it's usually an ampersand followed by some code, and in this case it's copy, and then a semicolon. And that's not what's going to show up. Instead, we're going to see the copyright symbol. And now I can wrap this whole thing in a p tag. Now finally we have another nav, and UL is an unordered list. So we've got another nav list, and I have this home, about, corporate, jobs, and then we have a social, which is follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. So let's go and copy that, and we'll build out that list. Follow us on social. UL. And now we have our listings. Oh, it just says follow us on. It doesn't say social. I'll fix that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last step is to wrap each of these items, and I'm going to do this backwards now. So up top, I started with the words, and then I built it out from here. I'm starting with the outer tags and working my way in. So each of these is a list item, li, and then an a tag, href equals #0. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to sign off, and I will code the rest of this. I'm going to do the same exact thing down here for Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. So I guess my challenge for you is go ahead and do the same thing. Before I sign off, what I'm going to do is show you where you can get the starter files. I neglected to do that in the last video. So on my GitHub, I've created a repository called Coffee Buddy, and it is github.com/jeffhowe/coffeebuddy, and I've posted this link in the notes for the video. So go ahead and you can download everything there. There's also a link to the playlist. Before I sign off, let's take a look at how our code looks. So if I refresh this, now I can see the outline of my document. So I have Coffee Buddy as the primary heading. I have my navigation menu. We've got our subheadings followed by our paragraph text. It doesn't look great yet, but it's a start. And as we continue to build, it's going to look awesome. Thanks for watching.